Okay, we're now going to resume, and Dr. Berhan Ahmed is here, and maybe I would invite you, Dr. Ahmed, to come forward. And following that, we'll have Mr. Hans Zonneveld. So, Dr. Ahmed, could you please identify us your name and your position and your interest?
Thank you. My name is Dr. Berhan Ahmed, as mentioned, and I'm the chair of the African think tank. And my interest is clearly, from the social part of it, because I, as an African community leader and as an Australian, I am keen to see the human face of this whole analysis, as I am a senior research fellow at Melbourne University. As a senior scientist also, I do research and for the benefit of the people and environment. And here I see the benefit of people is important. I read the inquiry report and I was delighted, and I would also like to put some human face into it and to that challenge that what we talk about the industry, as I have been to many parts of the world, that yes, this is useful to all of us, and it is important to consider in putting the human face and making it a better social system that helps everyone.
So thank you. Well, we have your submission.
Yeah.
We've had information from you. Maybe you would like to give us a short account of it, and then we may have some questions for you.
Thank you. If I would first start acknowledging the report that has been submitted, the inquiry that has been done was excellent, and I was feeling somehow to feel more into that with all that information given. As highlighted in my presentation, I'm looking at the challenge facing the new and emerging communities and families. The children from the taxi industry, that more fathers working there, having no time for family. In fact, if I would start this way, where I started to feel that pain, a Somali mother called community elders for divorce. And the community elders were shocked to say, "Why do you want divorce?" She said, "I want my husband and you coming to my house to process this." And they all came to the house, sitting, the elders and the husband. She said, "I will ask my husband, who's been working 16 hours in the industry, trying to pay the lease and everything, trying to get the family the best." And she said, "I'll ask him one question. If he would answer that one question, I don't want any process to be done. I will live with my husband. But if you don't answer that question, I would want a divorce." And the question was, she said to him, "Do you know what school your son goes and what grade does he study?" He was caught by surprise. He don't know. And that for the man was shocking, because he was doing the best for the family, but that best didn't come as a best because, and as a community leader, I'm dealing with many challenges, young people, especially in the inner city Melbourne, where many families are struggling to go and find issues. So to take this head on, I did a survey questionnaire which is given to you guys, and the survey was mainly to address issue of safety, low wage, racial abuse and fare evasion, high taxi licenses fee, training issues, drivers shortage, lack of transparency and accountability within the industry. Taxi drivers report and complain to police has no meaning, but clients could continue saying whatever they want because the police don't stand with the drivers. So the survey, survey information, as you've read in the paper that I provided, has a number of questions, and the questions were all about addressing issues that are common that everyone wants to fill. And I asked, before I put the survey, I asked many of them how they feel if they can fill the survey. They were sort of happy because they said, at least we'll get someone to put our case. But I gave them space for those who can write and respond. So most of them has responded by writing. So if I can give you now, just saying, the background of the drivers. Now 58 people replied out of this. The interview worked for an average of 6.5 years with an average of 9.5 hours per day and 5.5 days per week, every driver. Irrespective of their ethnic background, the majority of drivers consider themselves Australians. They are committed and ready to improve their service skills and professional in the industry, but they don't have time. Given all the constraint in the industry, they cannot be flexible in any way. The survey results conducted around the Melbourne Metropolitan during the working commencing the 3rd of August. After receiving the email from the inquiry, I took that action because I want to, as representing the community, I want them to tell me what they feel, what their challenges are, rather than me standing on what I feel. And I've tried to put the facts. So 58 of them, in fact, some of them delayed in responding, which I have got some, about 30 not included in this data because I had a time limit to make this presentation, and I said, if you can do it within time, I'll be happy to accept. But I got the 58, and I worked on those 58. Now, voluntary, it was all voluntary and was random in terms of age, in terms of experience in the industry, because I don't want to get all or people experience it or people starting in the industry. And we've done it randomly, and that random has shown some sort of information that is relevant, as in the working hours, the days, and also the interest in the industry. So one of the issue was for me also in terms of how many children are in your family. What that makes is how they respond to their sort of responsibility in the family, and have they got big family, small family. And as in the data, there's an average of 4 kids per family type things. So it is quite interesting, that number, and for me it was important. The working condition they described was wages inadequate, increased charge per kilometer on flag falls was of a concern to them, and 55% drivers said they pay fare evaders lost to owners. If someone didn't pay in the taxi, the fare, they have to pay it themselves. So, in which employment a worker takes that responsibility, except in this industry? And they said they don't get enough time with the family. Family breakdown increased. Children drop out of the schools is also increasing. Not getting enough work for the time on the road, including time to pick and drop the car, was also of a consider of 2 hours. That adds to their gross daily into 15 to 16 hours. No benefit. Some ask for at least superannuation payment or work cover and workers' right in a country like Australia, proud of our the 8-hour working hours. In this industry that lacks, and no information was provided or supported the industry to look at that. A few of the older drivers mentioned that they have tried to find employment in other areas, but this has been haphazard. They do not have transferable skills that are recognized in other industries and end up being stuck in this job. So even if they want to leave this employment or this job, there's no time for them to go and apply. And also, there is no skills that they can take from this industry and move to another industry. And that is a drawback to the job. So the industry has to change and embrace the problems and give the drivers a chance to move. Children per family with an average of 2.5, children of a maximum of 4+ in a family with a median of 3 children in the whole statistics that was shown. Social barriers in the taxi industry also was most important. Most people often have little awareness of socio-political background of drivers from Africa or India. And that times tendency to lump of, all African refugees or Africans as such, and Muslims as terrorists. Once the media has that, they get sort of reflections of that abuse in their daily work, which is concern to me and to the community, because that is not a health sign in the industry. And the industry has to do in helping the drivers somehow to move forward. Media bias, of course, is one of the problems. Complaint to police about fare evasion and other stuff, police never take serious these issues, and they don't respond to drivers. But if a client sort of puts that case, gets a chance to the police take it seriously. In fact, I was one of the first African taxi drivers in the 1987. And I did some of that with some taxi owners. In my time, I had one bad experience, which I left it long time. An Afghani taxi driver who was working on night shift of the taxi that I was driving went into Brunswick from King Street with 2 young girls, and they didn't have money. So the girls pulled him back and smashed him, and they didn't pay the money. And he jumped off the car and he caught one of them. They went to police and they reported him as he's trying to abuse them. And the man got into trouble, and then he went to legal aid, and they told him you'll be in prison for 2 years. Then he went to the taxi owner. He told him, but he gone. The taxi owner called his solicitor, and he told him, well, if he pays $1,000, I'll try to get him on good behavior bond or something related to that. So they're one person in a taxi defending against witnessing other people also. It is a problem. Like some people are dying also. There's many to that information that I collected, and one of the concern of especially the old drivers, an average of 7 years experience, they said lack of transparency on the taxi license issued and sold in the marketplace with different type of taxi licenses. Some drivers suspect the system is deliberately closed from public scrutiny and abused widely by individuals in power within VTD. Having many brokers in the road, the inquiry should focus on all licenses issued recently and the number of taxi plates on the road, which is inconsistent, the type of license include. So a taxi driver, which you don't want to mention his name, he put some figures with 2 others supporting that argument. Within, some people, some of the licenses require conditions. Some people, if they have demerit points, they don't get a license. But some within the industry, they get. And how they get, no one knows in the system. So they said this is a quite concern to us because we don't know why people get with demerit points while we apply, we don't get. So that was a very serious concern from most people. And the licenses that government leased them were too expensive, and some people got into trouble for putting their names into those sort of tenders because the tender was too high and they expected to go through the process to get a license, but they're all now selling. Most of them are going through bankrupt and trying to get out of it. It is not viable. It is not sustainable as an industry for them to continue putting their mortgage in place and not getting a return for their investment. And one other problem is the brokers within the leasing, taxi leasing. The brokers put people on terms that there are many brokers out there, and those brokers pressure taxi drivers. If you don't put it to street from $2,500 to $3,000, or if you don't pay on spot $20,000, you will not be able to get the license renewed. And some of them, they buy a car, and if they don't get that lease continue, they break their incomes and their family remain into debts. Now, I don't want to take too much of your time. I would appreciate your turn to take into questions, or if you got anything that you would like me to answer. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dr. Ahmed. Just your questionnaire, can you tell us how many people you approached to fill that in? I was just...
58. Well, I approached it, I sent 2 people to the airport in 2 different days to get people while they're sitting there to different...
Okay,
people.
so it was 58 was the
58,
sample, if you like, and you got 58.
My sample is 58, yes.
Yeah. I think it's very helpful, actually, that you've been able to do this, because it's quite interesting. One of the things that... a couple of interesting things there is that only 3 of those... Would they mainly have been drivers, or any of them licence holders or licence owners?
No, most of them were drivers, some were on lease, and some were with this new license PS.
Right. Anyway, only 3 you've got down here were covered by work, or considered that they were covered by work cover, which was an interesting proposition. The other thing that interests me a lot from what you've got here is that 40 of those drivers said that they would like to own their own cab licence. Yes. So one of the issues that we've been considering, and people have been talking to us about, the impact of our recommendations, which is to move to a system where licences are available for a price, set price. And one of the things that we think that this will do will encourage owner drivers. Do I interpret that as saying there would be quite a demand for new licences from African drivers?
Well, look, the demand is the system as it stands now. It is not affordable. If this, as recommended in the report, the 20,000 approach is encouraging, and that's where people are thinking it is better to stay in the industry and make a living. But in the current status, with the 3,005 or 3,000 something paying for lease, it's not affordable, or it's not sustainable for drivers, because the pressure on the family, the pressure on drivers is taking to its toll.
So some are presumably paying 30-odd thousand for a lease.
Yes.
This is making it more affordable, but so 2/3 of your survey people say that they would like to own their own cab licence. Yes. But how many of those do you think, if you like, could afford one at $20,000?
Well, this statistics was just I did it because I need to put factors. I've organized a meeting in 2010, June, and I had them all in the community center, and I spoke to them about their experience. All of them are keen for license, but the current license is not a way for them, because they've seen people losing and they're not committed to go to that. But majority in the 2010 June meeting at the community center in North Melbourne, they all seem to be keen to buy license in an affordable sort of price.
Okay. Can you tell us how significant employment in the taxi industry is for people from the African community, and particularly relatively newcomers to Australia?
Well, to be honest with you, I would say this way. It is about linking people. Like, I'm at Melbourne University, I can be a link to some other coming. I started taxi myself, and I have been the link to many to get in. And it's the easiest way for people to be linked. any migrant coming into the system. If I could take you one step back. Back in the 20th century, Australia was a manufacturing economy and was easy for people to move into the factories. They don't need your brain, they need your body, and you can fit in. Now, 21st century Australia is knowledge and service economy. In a knowledge and service economy, it's not about your knowledge, your skills, it's about your connection. Now, most people coming as new migrants here, they don't have that connection. And that breaks any links to anyone, to any industry. The taxi industry, given that there is a number of people there, it is an access. And most of them, when they look for a lease, they try to get some of their own friends or relatives to do that part to help them cover the cost of their lease. So with that sort of end, it helps the link and it gets to recruit more people into that industry than anywhere. But people have got qualifications. If they get access to other industry, I guarantee they will be moving to better other jobs.
One of our recommendations is to require new drivers to have a licence, a Victorian licence, for 12 months. Do you have any comment on the impact that that might have on African drivers?
Well, look, to be fair, most of these people coming, and in fact, I didn't bring it here. I did a study with La Trobe University some time back in terms of background of most of these African refugees coming in here. In education terms, most of them have got an average of grade 7. Okay, this is an average, including most of the female are lower grade, but when you take an average of 7, it shows there are a lot of educated, and most of the people in the taxi industry are educated. It is fair, and most of them, they accept that the process to be transparent and easy, as in any job. And taxi license, by having a Victorian license for 12 months is fair, and I think everyone would embrace it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much for this very interesting survey and for your general submission and information that you've given us in the inquiry.
Just, I wonder if I could just...
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to. But you did mention the role of brokers, and maybe you could say a little bit more about brokers and
Yes.
their impact.
One of the people who completed of the survey, he got 3 leases, and he talks about having brokers every end of the year coming and telling him if he don't put a bit more money, he may lose the lease. And the brokers are not, there's 2 phases of brokers. Broker 1 sends another broker that gets within the community. Okay, and they don't have a choice when it comes to the end of the year. In a critical time, they either put money more or they lose it. So they don't speak directly to the owners or to the, and this is why the current recommendation is important for the industry, because the government has to own it, and people has to deal with the government in that process, rather than dealing brokers, and you don't know how many brokers coming to that. In fact, to that end also, insurance is one of the biggest problem with most of these people that have shown this information, and they said insurance becoming a nightmare in the taxi industry because of the prohibiting taxi license and the pressure that they have in the road. It is really hard to get away without any trouble in the car. And if that comes, it causes severe pressure on the family and the driver.
Okay, thanks. We're going to hear some more about insurance later in the day, I think. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity. And I hope the community view into that sort of challenge helps in the economic rational way of deciding the process. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.